This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good evening everyone. We're continuing in Masechta Nedarim, Daf Hashavua, Daf Lamed Hey, on Daf Lamed Dalet Amud Beis. The Gemara had a shaila. Rabbi Bar Abin asked Rava, if somebody says, my kikar is usher to you, and then you gave it to the guy as a matana, what is the halacha? What is the emphasis? Is the emphasis on my kikar? So it's only usher to you when it's my kikar. When I give it to you, it's not my kikar, it's your kikar. So you're allowed to get hana. Or is the emphasis on you? So whether it's mine or whether it's in your domain, I'm answering it to you. Rava responded, logically, it should be usher. It's obvious it's usher. Because if it's not usher when he gave it to him, why in the world did he need to make it usher? He needed to make it usher before he gave it to him. Before he gave it to him, of course it's usher, because it belonged to me, it belonged to the owner. He didn't have to usher it to somebody else. He doesn't have to, he made it usher so the guy doesn't steal it. The guy wasn't allowed to steal it anyway. So the Gemara said back, well, that's not necessarily compelling. Maybe he ushered it for a case where you invited him to your house. That's why he ushered it. So now we're going to discuss this shaila of Rabbi Bar Abin asked Rava. Okay? Rava again held that it's logical that it would be usher. Esvei, we're going to ask a question on what Rava said. Amar loi, if he said to another guy, Hashilani parascha, he said, lend me your cow. Lend me your cow. Amar loi. And the owner of the cow said, no, I'm not going to lend you the cow. Koinam para shani kanoi lecha. I aser the cow that I own, and I aser it to you. Or, nechasai alecha. My property is aser to you. And, im yeshli para elazu. If I have another cow besides this. In other words, he's saying like this. What do you mean I should lend you my cow? I only have one cow, and I need a cow for myself. And if you don't believe me that this is my only cow, I'm telling you right now, this cow is usher to you, or all my possessions are usher to you, if I have another cow. The only thing is, right after he said that, about 500 cows in his backyard said, moo! And so obviously he was proven wrong, because he said, he promises this is his only cow. The only thing is, right after he said that, he got knocked over by about 500 cows barging out of his front door. Or, let's say the guy says, Hashilani kardumach, lend me your shovel. Amar loi, no, koinam kardum sheyeshli. I aser the kardum that I have. Or, shani kanoi, or the one I just bought. Nechasai alai. Or, my possession should be usher to you. So either he says, I usher this shovel that I have, that I bought, or I usher all my possessions, and he says, if I have another shovel. It turns out he has other cows, he has other shovels. So the halacha is like this. So basically, he's ushering his possessions or his cow or his shovel to the other guy. So the halacha is b'chayav aser. While the person who made the neder is alive, so then the shovel or the cow is going to be aser to the mudar. Mace, but if the guy died, or he gave him a gift, hareza mutter, it's mutter to him. This is a direct contradiction to Rava. Rava said that once you give it to the guy, if you aser the guy in my kikar, if you say kikri alecha, if I say my thing is aser to you, Rava said it's aser even when you give it to the guy, even though it's not yours anymore. But here we see explicitly that if you took a neder to aser your cow or your shovel to the guy, and then you give it to the guy, so the halacha is hareza mutter, it's permitted. So it's a kasha on Rava. Look in the Ran. Esvei hashilani parascha knuya para hamunachas b'fneihem. regarding the cow placed in front of them. Koinam para shani kanoy alecha. I asked the cow that I bought to you. Koinam alecha parasizu. I asked her on you this cow. Imani kanisi ela parazu. If I have more than this cow, or he asks all his possession if he has another cow. So b'chayav aser im nimsa sheyesh lo par acher. So if it turns out he has another cow, I kardem acher. But meis lo shenasan lo b'matan harei mutter mishum dechi meis, because when the guy dies, lo shenasan lo b'matan lo parasa, it's not his cow, lo kadum, it's not his shovel, lo nechasve, it's not his possession. The Kosal Kedaitach, right now in the Havamina, the Gemara thinks, Shehamadir nasan lemudar, the Madir gave it to the Mudar, Ba'afilu hachishari, and it's still permitted. So it's a kasha on Rava, who asers. So the Rabbi Akiva Eiger here has a bumba of a kasha. Rabbi Akiva Eiger says, what's the kasha on Rava? The only reason Rava said that it's for sure aser is because why else do you need to aser the food to the guy? You don't need to aser it so he doesn't steal it. But here, says Rabbi Akiva Eiger, here, maybe Rava's logic would not apply. Maybe in this case, it's mutter. Why? Because you only meant to aser it to the guy. When you say it's aser to you, you meant if I lend it to you, it's aser to you. But if I give it to you as a matana, maybe then it's mutter to you. In other words, ask Rabbi Akiva Eiger, the only reason Rava said that it's for sure aser to the guy is because the only reason Rabbi Akiva Eiger says that it's aser to the guy is because why else are you asering it to him? You're not asering it to him in case he steals it from you. But here there's another option. Maybe you aser the cow or the kardum in case you lend it to him. Lending was not possible by food. You could only lend a cow or a shovel. You can't lend a kikar. In any event, that's Rabbi Akiva Eiger's kasha that he leaves off as a tzarech iyun, to which the Gemara answers, Amar Rav Acha Breid Ravika Shenitna Laya Yedei Acher. Really, if you give it to the guy straight, it's going to be aser. You know what it means that nasna loy b'matana harei mutter? It means if he gave it to him through a third party, it was given to him by someone else. So since he got it through someone else, so he's allowed to be nene from it. Just like we saw in the Ran last week, that if you aser somebody on your kikar, for sure, if you give it to someone else and there's a guy in between, it would not be aser to the third guy. Rav Ashi says, Dekanami, another proof that it's talking about where a third person gave it to him. Diktani shenitnalai, it says nitnalai. No, it doesn't actually say nitnalai, because the lashon of the Brai says nasnalai. But it means we have a tradition that the nekudos are nitnalai. Nitnalai, it was given to him. Not that Ruvain gave it to Shimon, but it was given to Shimon through a third party. Says the Ran, Shenitnalai de'achar, shenasnu madir le'inish ta'ama. The madir gave it to a guy off the street. V'achar kach nasnu lemudar, and then that guy gave it to the mudar. Dekanami diktani shenitnalai kalamer shekach haisa kabbalah biyadam. They had such a tradition, likrois nasnai bechirak, to read it given with a chirak. Afal pi she'ein b'ksiva shem hefresh, even though it's not spelled any different. In other words, not that they had a tradition that there was a yud in the word, they had a tradition to read it nitnalai. Okay, the Ran adds, l'halacha, we hold, like Rava, that even though he gave it as a matana, it's aser, because Rava held misvara that way, and we have a dekanami that in fact that we have a tradition that it's only mutter because it was given al yidei achar. The Rashba adds that just like if you gave it as matana, it's asur. If the mudar bought it from him, it would also be asur. Okay, now we have a very interesting shaila. Boy minei Rava me Rav Nachman. Rava asked the shaila of Rav Nachman. Yesh meila b'kainamais oilai. Is there an isser meila by kainamais? What is a kainam? A kainam is a kind of neder. But the kind of neder it is it's like saying karban. So is that like being makdish it? Is it like being makdish it so that you're over an isser meila? We know if you make a neder, you say that something is asr as a neder, there's no meila. But what if you use the lashon of kainam? So kainam is a type of, so to speak, karban. Is there meila b'kainamais? Says the Ran, yesh meila b'kainamais, ha'oiser davar lo b'kainam, v'nena mimenu, mi mechayiv meila oilai, mi amrina da'asai kakarban, v'chayiv alav asha meila. Do we say that he made it like a karban in yechayiv meila, kinena min ha'kachim, or not? Amarle. So Rava asked this question from Rav Nachman. Amarle, Rav Nachman said, Tinisua, we learned it in the Mishnah. We learned in the Mishnah that if somebody is asur b'hana, and somebody returns an Aveda to him, and it's a place where normally the person who returns Aveda gets paid, then you can't just keep the Aveda without paying him, but you have to give the money to Hekdesh. Makam shenoitlin ala sachar, tipal hana lehekdesh. The money has to go to Hekdesh. Why does the money have to go to Hekdesh? All the guy did is he made a neder, you can't get hana. Yehuda enjoys this, right? All the guy made a neder, all the guy did is he made a neder that he can't get hana. So, okay, so I won't get hana. So I'll take the money and I'll give it to the Iranian regime or something. Or I'll give it to the Yam HaMelach. I'll put it in the Dead Sea. Why do I have to give it to Hekdesh? The guy only made a neder, a kainam. What's he giving it to Hekdesh for? Why can't he put it in the Dead Sea? There's the Shiloh, the scientists are choker, could an amoeba live in the Dead Sea? Right? But normally we say that if something is asur b'hana, yashlech liyam hamelech, you throw it into the Dead Sea. So why is it says makom shenala sachar tipal hana lehekdesh? The hana falls into hekdesh. That means that even though you made an isser kainam, the isser kainam, which says you can't get hana, because it goes to Hekdesh, that's why it says you give the money to Hekdesh. Lememra, it means to say, Ki Hekdesh, ma Hekdesh yesh me'ila, just like Hekdesh, there is me'ila, av kainamas yesh behen me'ila. So to a kainam, there is me'ila. Look in the Ran. Tipol hanol Hekdesh lememra Hekdesh. Di'iloi dami kainamas Hekdesh. If there's no commonality between a kainam and Hekdesh, havlei lemeimar, it should have said, Yolech hanol yam hamelach. Let the hana go into the Dead Sea, kediktani b'chol duchta, like it says always. Elamishum de b'mekaymais yesh bahen me'ila kehekdesh. Since there are, elamishum de b'kainamais yesh bahen me'ila kehekdesh. Since kainam has me'ila like hekdesh, kivan de b'hekdesh asik. Since we're dealing with hekdesh, tana tipa anola hekdesh. So it taught, let the hana fall to hekdesh. So this was a shaila Rava asked from Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman said the Mishnah is mashma kainamos are like hekdesh. Kitanoi. Really, it seems like whether kainam has a din of hekdesh is a machlekes tana. Kainam kikar zu hekdesh. Let's say I say kainam, this loaf of bread is hekdesh to everyone. I said kainam, this is hekdesh. What does that mean, kainam like hekdesh? That I want my isser kainam to be like hekdesh. Va'achala. So then, if it's eaten, bein hu ubein chaver, whether the guy eats it or someone else, ma'al, there's me'ilah. Lefikach, since it has a full din of hektish, yesh la pidyon, it could be redeemed. But kikar zu alai la hektish. This kikar should be hektish to me, so it's not hektish to everyone. So it's limited in its hektishness. Ba'achala, if he ate it, hu ma'al, only he's ma'al. If his friend eats it, his friend is not ma'al, chaver loy ma'al. Lefikach ein la pidyon. Therefore, there's no pidyon. Divrei Rabbi Meir. This is the opinion of Rabbi Meir. The Brisa continues, even if he said it's kainam for everyone, he's not ma'al. There's no me'ilah by kainamis. Rabbi Meir holds obviously yesh me'ilah by kainamis, and the Chachamim say ein me'ilah by kainamis. Let's see the Ran. Kainam kikar zu hektish. She'asar b'kainam l'chal. He answered it with a kainam to everyone. Ke hektish. Shu asar l'chal adam. Achla bein hu bein chaveroi ma'al. Diyesh me'ilah b'kainamis. Lefikach yesh la pidyon. Dikivan de mitzar akol yama. Since it's asar to the whole world. Ke hektish. Tafes pidyonai. The pidyon is taifes. Kikar zu alai hektish. Achla hu ma'al. Denehi dulai mitzra ela aleha. Granted, it's only asr to him, ki misani iu mina ma'al. So it's interesting, even though it's only asr to him, and the fact that it's only asr to him makes it there's no pidyon, but he would still be violating me'ilah. Chaveroi loy ma'al, lefikach ein la pidyon. The kivan the chaveroi loy ma'al, since this friend is not over me'ilah, loy olam kehektish, it is not strong like hektish, lemidfas pidyoina, that the pidyon should be taifes. But the Chachamim say, ben kach loy ma'al lefi she'ein me'ilah b'kainamais. Bein b'kainam klali she'asar l'chal, bein b'kainam prati. Whether it's a general kainam that is asr to everyone, whether it's a specific kainam, nevertheless, there's no me'ilah b'kainamais. So it's a machlokes between Rabbi Meir, who says yesh me'ilah b'kainamais, and the Chachamim say ein me'ilah b'kainamais. How do we paskin? Look in the Ran. The Ran says we hold like Rabbi Meir. Interesting. You may know the rule is we don't paskin like Rabbi Meir. You may have heard such a thing in your life. So the Ran says Rav Nachman proved from the Mishnah yesh me'ilah. And Rav Nachman was a Basra. Also, in Shavuos, we're apich Rabbi Meir and the Rabbanan. So therefore we hold yesh me'ilah. Very interesting. Weiter gegangen. The Gemara says, so now, we just... Okay, look at this. Amar le Rav Acha Brei Rav Avi Rav Ashi. Rav Acha, the son of Rav Avi, said to Rav Ashi, Kikari alecha, if I say my kikar is asr to you, unesan olai b'matan, I give it to you as a gift, mi ma'al, who is ma'al? Who is ma'al? Let's say like this. I say my kikar is asr to you. Now, truth is, we just said there's only me'ilah b'kainamais if it's asr to everyone. Nobody says there's me'ilah b'kainamais if I just say, meaning the Rabbi Meir holds that if there is me'ilah b'kainamais, if I just asr it to myself, if I say kikar zu alai lahektish, so here I'm saying my kikar is asr to you, and then so in this case the kikar is asr to you. By the way, I would say this is another raya that the halacha is yesh me'ilah b'kainamis, because this whole shaila is going to be dependent on, this whole shaila is assuming yesh me'ilah b'kainamis, and now the shaila is who's ma'al? If I say my kikar is asr to you and I give it to you, am I ma'al or are you ma'al? Now you might remember We had a machlokes earlier that a very interesting machlokes, that if, let's say, I answer you with a neder, and then I give it to you to eat, and you eat it, who is chayiv malchus? So Pashtus, if I remember correctly, the Rush holds you're the one who's chayiv malchus. The Isser Neder is on you. But the Rambam holds no, the Isser Neder is the one who served it. You're not just over lifnei iver. That's the Isser Neder. So let's see how that plays a role over here. Says the Gemara, Ki kari alecha. If I say that my loaf of bread is asur to you, unasan alai b'matana, and then he gave it to the guy as a gift, mimal, limal noisein. If the giver is asur, halay asir alei. The loaf is not asur to the giver, which the Ran asked, what do you mean? The Rambam holds that the Yisur of Nedarim is on the one who serves it. Elamai, limo makabel, the recipient is over me'ilah. Why can't he, the makabel, say yachal da amar? He could say hetera be'isi. I only wanted something mutter isur la be'isi. I didn't want something asur. What exactly does that mean? Look in the Ran. Kikari alecha nasana lebimatan mimal. Klamer mimal benasinazu. Who is over me'ilah in this giving? The kivan diyesh me'ilah. Since there is me'ilah, ki hechi da amar behekdesh, just like we say by hekdesh. The natal evanai kara shel hekdesh ma'al. If you take a stone or a beam of hekdesh, you're over me'ilah for pishal eitzia, even though you didn't take it out of the rishus of hekdesh. Hacha nami, here also mikivan shazachaba. Since I was zoichen, it's shaycha me'ilah. It's shaykh me'ilah sheyatzim rishus oisar. It leaves the rishus of the one who's answering it. V'nichnas al rishus makabel, and it's entering the rishus of the makabel. What the Ran is saying is, I answered it to you, you are makabel it. The rule is that when somebody takes something of hekdesh, there is me'ilah, because it leaves the rishus of the oisar and it enters the rishus of the makabel. And the next Ran, the Ran says that this is a kasha on the Rambam. The Rambam says in Hamadir Schaveroi that, and then you feed him. The madir is loike because lo yachel devaroi, like we saw earlier. Where was that? On Daf Tezvav. Remember that machlokes, the Rush and the Ran. Who is over lo yachel devaroi when you feed somebody something that's usher to them? So, do we say the noisein is not over? It's not usher to the noisein. Maybe it's usher to the makabel. Because normally we say by hekdesh, that by hekdesh the person who takes it, in other words, let's say you lift it up, you're over me'ilah. So maybe the makabel is over me'ilah by being makabelet. To which the Gemara says, no. Maybe he could say, I only wanted something mutter, I didn't want something asr. Let's see the Ran. Limo makabel yachal da'amar hatera bina yisro lo bina. She'ilu haya yoideh, if he would have known shehu shal isr, that it's asr, lo haya roitzel zakes, but he would not want to be zochen it. V'nimtza zechia b'tas. He was zochen it erroneously, ve'ena zechia. But we know that when you're moyel behektish, thinking that if you pick something up of hektish, thinking that it's chulin, you're over on me'ilah. V'afagav de b'moitzim rishus hektish, even though you take something out of hektish's rishus, efshir it's possible that filu b'toa small, even erroneously you're over on me'ilah. Shani hach, here it's different. Shehu lo yoitzia, he's not the one who took it out. Ela chavero yoitzia, his friend took it out. So in other words, if you erroneously take something out of hektish's rishus, you're over on milah. But here, I'm not the one who took it out. You who gave it to me took it out. I just received it. In other words, the shaila is if somebody erroneously thinks something is chulin and he takes it out of hekdesh's rishus, they're over on meila. But was the makabel the one who took it out of hekdesh's rishus, or since the guy gave it to him, the noisein is the one who took it out? To which this was the shaila that Rav Acha Breid Rav Avia said to Rav Ashi. And Rav Ashi said back, Amar le makabel ma'al l'chshay yoitzi. The makabel is over on meila when he takes it out. Meaning when he uses it. Anyone who uses the money of hektish for chulin, kasaver shal chulin hu, thinking that it's chulin, mayal, he's mayal, avzeh mayal. We just said if somebody takes something out of hektish as just erroneously, thinking it's chulin, he's mayal. So this guy is also over on meila, even though, as we said, he's not the one who took it out. Let's look in the Ran. The Ran says, "Kolamer mehashta einecha mehamayal." Right now, neither is mayal mehanach tami da'amret, for the reasons we mentioned, namely, the noisein is not over meila, it's not usher to him. The makabel for receiving it, he's not over. He said, I acquired it. I only wanted it beheter, not be'isser. But when he uses it, when he uses it, he's on meila. Nehi degabe zechia amina and the zechia batasi. True, regarding when he picked it up, we say the picking up is not meila because he was zoichen et batas. But l'chshayoytzi, when he uses it, meaning the Gemara and the Havamina wanted to say, why should we makabel be over on meila? He was zoichen in it erroneously, to which the Gemara is saying, granted, he was zoichen it erroneously, so the moment he picked it up, he's not over meila. But when he uses it, then he'll be over meila. L'chshayoytzi lo yamrinan, when he uses it, we don't say, hachi, midi dahava akol moitzi mois hektish l'chulin. It's like anyone who spends the money of hektish l'chulin thinking it's chulin, that once he uses it, he's definitely over on meila. So maybe when he picks it up to be zoichet zechia b'ta'os, but when he uses it, he's definitely going to be over on meila. Tomorrow we start a new Mishnah regarding if someone's asur b'hana, could he be toireim truma? And we're going to be doing the sugya of whether kohanim are shluchei didan or shluchei dishmaya. Okay, hatzlacha rabba. Have a great night. Kol tov.
When he says he uses, what does it say?
Recording stop.
Sorry.
What does it mean to be using the bread? Who uses loaf for bread? What's the purpose of using loaf? Tell me, eat the bread. Why using?
What does use mean?
Yeah, what do I use a loaf of bread for? To step on to reach something, to get, for a decoration? What's the whole purpose of using a loaf of bread?
Using means really eating. Yeah, using is, unless whatever, it's warm and he gets benefit, whatever, when he gets something out of the bread.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.